Hi, folks. This is Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D. for the Institute for Dialectical Metarealism. Let's get rolling. Usually, I try to avoid the word hope. It strikes me as ontologically idealistic. Hope is fine, and there is little hope in the world today. We look around and we see so many crises and the acceleration of what I have called since I was a little kid the process of the great unraveling. I thought I coined that term, and I guess I did for myself, but then I soon discovered that other people use the term as well. In any event, no matter who coined it, we are surely seeing a great unraveling of the capitalist world system. It is all around us. I mean, the contradiction of a Republican attempting to assassinate the former Republican president of the United States, Donald J. Trump, is a contradiction in itself, and one that I really do not quite understand. It seems extraordinarily odd to me, and I imagine it seems odd to most people as well. I don't know really what to do with it or where to go with it. We also see the crisis with Gaza. Gaza has been mostly destroyed. The people there are living in truly desperate times. No homes, no real shelter, a lack of food, a lack of water. It is a real mess for people there, for people in Ukraine, and for people right here in the US, considering that the presidential election is only, well, just under 4 months away. That's not a very long time. And there might be considerable unrest in the period leading up to and following the election, depending upon who wins and who loses. And of course, nobody really knows. It looks right now as though Donald Trump will likely win, but those kinds of things can change on a dime. We really don't know for sure, for example, whether President Joe Biden will remain in the presidential race. He says he will, but people say all sorts of things and they don't do them. He is under an enormous amount of pressure to withdraw. Whether he is paying attention to that, I have no idea. And I imagine nobody really does except for Joe Biden himself and perhaps his closest confidants, and especially the members of his own family. But again, given that we are living in such tormented times when everything literally appears to be falling down around us, there is a lack of hope, and that lack of hope is sadly understandable. I would say that if I were not a Maoist third worldist, then I might have a lack of hope too, because I would be placing my hopes in the first world, in the capitalist world system. The first world is rapidly deteriorating. The capitalist world system, along with the first world, is deteriorating too, at a very swift pace, much swifter than I ever imagined. And I tend to be a cynic and a pessimist, and some people have argued that cynicism and pessimism are not compatible. Well, maybe not, but they are compatible in my head because I am both. And so I look at the world, and to me, there is hope. Is that hope necessarily going to be realized? No. There are no guarantees. The dialectic is bringing down the capitalist world system. That is something I have believed since I became a communist back in 1968. And that belief has never once left me. I have seen and observed very carefully what has been happening with that capitalist world system and why I should not place my hopes in it. But many people many people do believe that the capitalist world system is their only hope. For example, progressives who believe in, as I sometimes say, putting a Band-Aid on the capitalist world system, trying to make the capitalist world system better, kind of like the evolutionary socialism, which we now might call social democracy, of Edward Bernstein, the great adversary of Red Rosa Luxemburg. He was a believer that the capitalist world system could in some way be patched up, that we could reach something like socialism, but I think it was really more like social democracy if you read what he wrote very carefully, through democracy, through bourgeois democracy. We have seen in recent years that that kind of a prospect is really, really unrealistic. It is highly unlikely that somehow we will vote in socialism, especially here in the United States, the center of neo-fascism, the center of corruption in the modern world. I can't imagine it. Now, because I can't imagine it doesn't mean it won't happen, but I I look at the world and I know that I personally have gone through periods in my own life where I believed it was possible for the first world to be fixed, repaired. I now look back on those days with some degree of regret, but not entirely, because I realize that I learned from those times. I wish I would have learned sooner. In fact, I did learn sooner when I became a Maoist third worldist for the first time under the influence of the great Jason Unruh, but then I left it and became a first worldist again. And then through some type of, the only word I can think of is a miracle, when I encountered Red Pagan Nicole, her YouTube channel, began watching her videos and realized that I had made a terrible mistake. Now, was Nicole's channel the only reason I returned to Maoism Third Worldism? No. I had been returning to Maoism Third Worldism for roughly a year before that time. In fact, my reason for moving down here to the Rio Grande Valley, aside from the climate, which is wonderful, was to be close to Mexico. And I'm only 2 miles from Mexico. I wanted to be right next to the third world. And now I am. And I love that. And I love the third world. I despise the way in which people in the third world are oppressed, especially by the cartels. I despise the way people here in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas are oppressed as well. There is a lot of poverty by relative American standards right here in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas. But I don't have any hope anymore that we will be able to patch those things up. I don't look to a particular political candidate as providing the solutions for the problems which ail us. No, I just don't think that that is where the answer lies. And so I have lost hope in the first world. in the capitalist world system, and in particular in what I call the head of the beast of that capitalist world system, the United States of America, the country into which I was born. I sometimes want to say regrettably born, but I perhaps should not say that. And so I resist usually the temptation to say that, because I think that however corrupt this country is, being here and being who I am, being the person I am with what I have learned, uh, is beneficial, and hopefully will be beneficial to those around me. Should by some miracle I survive the coming calamities that are bound to afflict us here in the US, I want to be a person who can help my fellow human beings, my fellow men and women in this area and in Mexico, to recover from whatever trauma they may have experienced. And so, to me, looking at the third world and the fourth world as well as a place where revolutions might well occur, because there is, unlike here in the US, dialectical or revolutionary potential in the third world and in the fourth world. Now, I am not being Pollyannish. I am not saying that there is revolutionary or dialectical potential all over the third world or all over the fourth world. I realize that there is corruption, that there is materialism, that there is greed and selfishness and capitalism in the third and fourth worlds as well. But I think that there is enough potential in the third and fourth worlds for revolutions to arise, unlike right here where I am in the first world, where despite my hopes, despite my wishes, I see no potential for revolution here in the United States. I wish I saw it differently, because I live here. And I would like to live in a place where I could say, well, we may be in bad shape right now. We may be headed into a season, election season, where there could be tremendous unrest and who knows what else. But I can't say that. I just see the unrest. I don't see any light at the ends of that dark tunnel. And so for me, the hope that I have is hope, but not hope in what is here. And I think that is what can give me a sense of optimism, even though I tend to be a pessimist. A bit of optimism, because inevitably, looking at the world around me, I see disintegration, I see collapse, I see calamity, I see catastrophe. But I don't believe that revolutions will start here. And so I don't have to worry about whether this part of the world where I am is ready for something that I don't think will happen here yet, namely revolutions. I think, again, that those will begin in the third and fourth world. And so to me, Maoism, third worldism is a wonderful gift. It is a gift given to me twice, mercifully given to me twice. I accepted it and rejected it, and was given the opportunity to accept it once again through Red Pagan Nicole's channel, and I did. And I can tell you that I will never reject it again. I see what Maoism, third worldism can offer the world. I see that nothing around me here in the first world especially the US, has anything to give the world except imperialism, colonialism, and cultural hegemony. And so that is what I wanted to share with you, is the fact that I have hope, but not because of what I see around me, but in fact because of what I do not see around me, but what I hope will emerge from a world which is not around me, namely the third world and the fourth world. And that is what I wanted to convey. And hopefully I've done so effectively. And so for the time being, this has been Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D., for the Institute for Dialectical Meta-Realism. Have a pleasant day and an even better day tomorrow.